Hey guys, really quick, before you get to the video, do me one quick favor. Like the video down below if you haven't already done so. Subscribe to the channel. Goals TV is on this mission of growing the beautiful game in North America. Whether you call it soccer, footy, football, doesn't really matter. We want to see the game grow in the States, in broader North America. Can't do it without your help. All right. So if you support that mission alone, subscribe to the channel. Plenty of stories being told by fans, content creators, everyone in between. We really appreciate your support. If we could get at least 20 plus likes on this video, I would be massively grateful. Again, just like the video down below, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy.
It was Otamendi's fault. Yes, but the man had like clearances and like a physical presence that cannot be denied, and you see that he's capable of that stuff at Man City and especially this World Cup, right? He can contribute these things, and I was just like, we were just like screaming over the island in his kitchen.
We've already had one of, what are we going to call this, dynamic trio? I didn't come up with a name before the show today, but we've already had Jack from Deadball on this pod before, and it was a fantastic interview. A lot of stories I think our audience really, really loved. I'm excited to have one of his right-hand men on the show today. The banter extraordinaire Connor from Deadball TV is on Box to Box for us today. Guys, Connor, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Yeah, unfortunate for you, unfortunate for Arsenal. I think the scoreline was, I mean, I want to say unfair. You guys deserve more, I'll say. But it looked pretty one-sided, and normally I'd be pretty happy about that, but I don't hate Arsenal, man. So unfortunate that he came away with the 4-1. And dude, I've got Saka on my fantasy Premier League team, and I'm getting
Same.
absolutely trounced. I think I checked the score at the end of the game. I'm losing like 52-12. It's fucking brutal.
Oh, brutal, bro. Yeah, I don't even want to check my score right now because I have a few different Arsenal players. So based on this one match alone, it can't be good. But
No.
either way, man, either way, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we're doing this. This is, I feel like it's been a long time coming now. And look,
Yeah.
I said it with Jack's episode. I'll say it with yours. You're one of the few return guests on Box to Box because we did that. And granted, we were all in a much more trolly, bantery mood. The World Cup was in full swing. We were slightly hungover. Yeah, we were definitely incensed with World Cup fever. It was crazy at that time. Very spoiled. A few matches a day. Take me back, bro. But with that said, coming off of an insane Arsenal City match, talking now at the time of recording, right, April 26th. I mean, dude, we're gonna talk about your journey today. Everything that is Deadball TV from your perspective. But before we get to any of that, you already know the question I'm going to ask to every single guest on this show. I think you probably have a really interesting answer for us, Connor. Who are you today?
Who am I today, man? That's a tough question. I think self-reflection is something that people need to focus on more, and I think we do it casually. But when you get put on the spot like that, it's tough to describe who you are. I think I define myself by the people who are around me. So I think I'm a guy who's trying to make his way, especially in this, newly into this, in the most recent, year and a half that we've been doing Deadball, into the YouTube soccer community and the international soccer community in general. Just fans overall trying to get into the zeitgeist there. So I think I'm just, your average guy. I'm an aspiring actor here in New York. Yeah, as you can see, I've got this ginormous pile of boxes and stuff and a clothes rack over here. I'm just a guy getting situated in a brand new city, trying to make his way. And yeah, I'm a guy who wants a lot, I think. And I'm well on my way to getting there, or at least getting a foothold in the city, which I'm pretty happy about.
You should be, bro. And look, I think you could sum it all up in one word, probably, right? Ambitious. I think that's the way that I would put it. I think you got a great take on not just your own life, but life in general. I think your banter on Deadball TV from a footy perspective is spot on. I think in the midst of all of that, right, there's more than a few good takes. And your background as not just a person, but a football fan is something that's gonna be more relatable than I think people realize. So let's jump in, bro. I'm excited to talk about all of it.
Let's do it.
And look, let's very much have a conversation today. Let's start with your earliest memories of the beautiful game, how you were brought into it, whether it was family influenced, friend influenced. I mean, feel free to start as early as you want in the journey and kind of help us see where all the roots around your footy fandom came from.
Yeah. So as early as I can remember, but my first probably football exposure was my dad. My dad was a huge footballer when he was a kid. Early on, before like colleges and there really was an MLS. Like there was no Houston Dynamo to speak of. He grew up in Conroe, Texas, son of Argentine immigrants, first generation American. And yeah, he loved soccer, and Conroe, Texas back in the 70s did not really take kindly to that. So
Definitely not.
no, definitely not. So he was hanging out with one of his best friends, Jeremy. He's English. He was an English immigrant over here, and they became really good friends because they were like the only two guys who are really good on the team, and dad, grew up playing soccer, obviously going back to Argentina, getting exposed to it there. Huge Boca Juniors fans. I've got the scarf out from going to teach today.
La
And
Bombonera, not really
La
that is.
Bombonera, querido. But yeah, I remember probably my earliest footballing memory is like running around the house singing La Copa, se mira y no se toca.
I
Huge
love
Diego
it.
Maradona fan. You know what? I think another really early memory was because me and Jack actually met each other playing soccer at the YMCA, and it's really hard to watch Boca games like back in the day when I was a kid. So we would watch them whenever we could, but we didn't really have cable at home. So I would kind of get like distant to it. It was just really hard to like grab my attention without it being right in front of me, right?
Yeah.
So aside from playing at like the local YMCA with Jack as a kid, um, I really didn't have that much exposure to it early on, besides like big games. So I remember asking my dad one day, I was like, Dad, because, of course, my parents are divorced. So I was over at my mom's house. I was like talking to her, and she was talking to like my sister and maybe one of her friends about how attractive David Beckham was. Right. They were talking, they were like, oh, he's such a good soccer player. Like, oh my gosh, he's so good. He's so handsome. And I remember one day I was like thinking about it, and I like asked my dad, I was like, Dad, is David Beckham the best player ever? And he was like, whoa. He was like, no, 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 no. No son of mine is going to go around peddling opinions like that. And he was like, no, not even close.
Good for your
Like,
dad, bro. Good for your dad.
he put his foot down, man. I feel like he's a pretty easygoing guy, but right there, his whole mood shifted. I'll never forget. He like stopped and he looked at me. He was like, no, no. Diego Maradona immediately, first out of his mouth. Diego Maradona, Pelé, Cruyff, like those guys. You learn those first, and then we could talk about David Beckham and his nice, pretty free kicks.
Well, bro, what year was this roughly? Because Beckham had there was a time
Shit.
where he had, I guess, you get a top of his game, right? But if you had
Yeah,
how old were you? What year was this?
dude. I can't even remember. I imagine I was probably like six or seven. So like maybe like just before the 2000s.
Mm.
Just before the 2000s, or right there, 2000, 2001, something like that.
So I can tell you right now. I mean, he hadn't gone to Real Madrid yet. He definitely wasn't
No.
the best.
No,
Definitely
no
wasn't the
shot.
best.
Well, that's the thing. Like my mom, she pays attention, but she's not like a diehard footy fan, Like
Yeah.
oh my God, bless her heart, during the World Cup, she asked me, she was like, so are you rooting for Germany? Because we have like some German family on like my mom's side. And I was like, no, no shot. She's like, why not Germany? And I was like, 2014, mom. And she was like, what happened 2014? And I was like, they beat the shit out of Argentina. I can't do that.
No, definitely not.
No,
If anything,
no.
you're on a revenge tour from
On a
2014.
revenge tour, dude. It was so nice to watch them crash out. And I've got some German friends. Everybody's very quiet. Everybody
Yep.
was very quiet, and that's just how I liked it. So I can focus my attention on what the matter at hand,
I love that, bro. Bro, that's crazy to me, right? So, like, I feel like what you had I would say not like a normal, at least for someone in this country, right? Because you mentioned before Conroe, Texas, not being accepting of soccer or footy. And guys, when he says not being accepting, it might as well have been communism. Like it's basically what it might as well have been. Because at this, if you didn't appreciate American football over anything else, your opinion just wasn't valid. Like that's just
Oh yeah.
you weren't a sports guy. Like that's
No,
just how it was.
especially in Texas. Like we can love baseball as much as you want. Like, don't get me wrong, Houston is a huge baseball city,
Yep.
but American football gridiron it reigns supreme. It
Yeah.
reigns supreme. And Yeah, I remember my dad, he would play. So when he went to college, he was already older, but he lived in College Station where they have A&M, and he said that he would always vet himself by going to play against the college guys who were like in
Ah,
town, or they would have tournaments, and he would always sign himself up and just go and test himself against these guys who were on the professional track back in the day, right?
bro, I like this. Like your dad.
Oh, he
Hell of
got
a competitor, it seems
he
like.
was a hell of a competitor. And I only found out about this stuff in, I would say, like the last 5 years. Like, he really
Mm.
did not talk about it. But I come to find out from my aunt that after he was like working around College Station, he ended up moving back to Houston eventually. And he tried out for the Dynamo provisional team, like right when they were just becoming a club. And they got through or maybe they weren't the Dynamo yet, actually. They were like the club that was going to become the Dynamo, right?
Was it
Long
yeah,
story
like before the earthquakes had like moved over, I think. But yeah,
I
I know what you're talking
yes.
about.
It was like just there, just at the beginning, and he was in the final round of tryouts for them, and he hadn't signed contracts, he hadn't put pen to paper or anything, but he blew out his meniscus and his ACL in the middle of the final tryout.
Oh my
And,
god.
yeah, they had cut it down from, like, hundreds of guys to, like, just tens of guys, and he was, like, part of, like, the final 2
Holy
provisional teams that were scrimmaging, and he blew his ACL and his MCL out, and he had already blown an ACL out in the other knee, and he didn't have insurance, and they kinda looked at him. I remember he told me, like, when I finally grilled him about this, it was, like, 2, 3 years back, had no idea before this, but, they kinda came over to him, and the coach and the medical guy or whoever was running the trial kinda looked at the knee and looked at him, and he was like, "I'm sorry, man, you haven't signed anything, there's nothing we could do for you. You should probably just go
wow.
get that looked at." And
Damn.
so he fucking missed it, and that was kind of the end there, but he dominated the YMCA league for years to come after that.
Hey man, it's soft consolations, right? I guess you take small
Exactly.
W's where you can find them, but like, dude, that's so. I can't imagine how disheartening that must have been. But it's still
Yeah,
a tale as old as time, right? Like
it
you have
is. It
players
is,
who
yeah.
could consistently go out to injury, and man, sad
Yeah.
part about the game.
It is the sad part about the game, but, I think he was, pretty good afterwards, about it. He did actually coach our, YMCA team 1 year. We were not incredible. Maybe me picking dandelions in the back, with my ADD riddled child brain didn't really contribute to that. But, I remember I didn't really, find a passion for football until later. I always cared about it, but all my earliest memories, like Argentina, I hadn't won a trophy until the Copa America for 26 years, my entire
Yeah.
life, right? So I loved Batistuta, right? I loved him, and I know he got himself a Copa America, but I was still too young to really like fathom that. I hadn't seen that happen, so all I saw was like loss after loss after loss after loss. Like even my American football teams were trash, like the Houston Texans. So I was just kind of off sports for a long time until like middle school, high school. After I kind of moved away from the neighborhood where me and Jack grew up, I was
Okay.
like, I don't want to play on another soccer team. If I'm not playing with my buddies, like I don't want to do it. So I got back into it freshman year of high school, and I was kind of overweight. I was kind of slow. I was a late bloomer. So it really taxed me to compete with these other guys who were just physically just way beyond me. But I always had like a decent like penalty kick, right? But like my
Hmm.
cardio wasn't there. And then I started doing acting and theater, and I started finding like real success. Like I made the varsity equivalent of our theater program my freshman year, and we took it
Yeah.
all the way to almost got to state. We got to region, and we just put on a really good show. And I was like, I really have a future here. So I started prioritizing that instead of soccer. But I slowly started watching more and more. Messi of Barcelona, he slowly becomes a household name. And then,
Yep.
at the dinner table, like who's better, Messi or Maradona? And I was like, okay, this guy might be the real deal. Then I hear about Aguero's moment, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm looking, for like a prem team. So I start watching that. I figure out that they have Zabaleta, Demichelis,
Yep.
Aguero. Then they pick up Otamendi. Like it was just kind of meant to be. So I started investing in Manchester City. So Argentina and Boca have always been my loves, like diehards. I think I might take Boca Campeón over Manchester City Premier League champions.
Bro, respectable as hell, to be honest, man.
I think I would have to. I think I'm more skin in the game there.
Yeah, no, bro.
Maybe not
respect.
now because I got to defend myself against the other chuckleheads on the podcast, but I really do ride for those guys. And this season has just been painful for Boca. But
it is what it is, though, man. I mean, look, I said at the beginning of the year it would be amazing, and granted, I've enjoyed much this season. Most of the podcast knows if you don't, you can see my background. I'm a massive both Barcelona and Arsenal fan, and I thought it would have been a pipe dream years ago to have both teams be world class in the same season. Yeah. And I feel like this is a pipe dream that I've been living all of 2023 so far. It's been like, dude, I don't know what's going to happen. Barca and Arsenal might win it. I have no idea, but I guess we'll see. So, like, either way, bro, the whole Boca thing, I mean, like, it kind of is what it is, but you seem adamantly passionate about the teams that you support. And I'm really kind of curious, even the players, like you mentioned with your dad, when you had those conversations, because it's now you could probably have it in a more educated way, considering he's on the tail end of his career. You have met the Messi versus Maradona, question, how do you and your dad really see it? I imagine when you came up, I remember with me and my dad, we kind of saw eye to eye in a lot of things, but as I got older, started to formulate my own opinions, we've seen things a little bit differently. So, I mean, how is that kind of evolved?
So I think dad will always have a soft spot for Maradona. And probably for the same reason that I have a soft spot for Aguero and Messi is because we're both like really white Argentines. So growing up in Texas, I remember I would be like, "Oh, I'm Argentine," and people would be like, "You're Mexican." I'm like, "No, I'm Argentine." They're like,
they
"But
say
you
it all the
speak
time, dude."
Mexican." And I'm like, "Oh my God, no, I speak Spanish, right?" And yeah, it's related. It's understandable, right? People are just not they're not educated about that, right? It's very insular, I feel like. So I think my dad will always ride for Maradona because of what he meant. He was like a symbol. He was like, that's my guy. That the closer I associate with him and the closer I am to him, the closer I am to my culture, or what I identify to be my culture. So the same thing for Messi and Aguero. Messi's another kind of white passing guy that is, Argentine, obviously, hasta las orejas, up to his fucking ears in Argentine culture and the day to day. So I don't know. I just relate heavily, and he's got kind of the orange beard. My family always tells me, so I like to grow it on. Like,
he does, man. And
it
so
symbolizes.
It does. And look, I think it's respectable 100% for your dad to kind of maintain. I mean, either way, if you had to put like the top two, not even just global icons of world football on a top 5 list, your top 2, if they were Messi and Maradona or the other way around, I don't think many people would argue with you. It's like they would probably see your point to an extent, right? One way they're like, okay, cool, I get it. Depending on the area that you grew up in, it makes sense. But it is. Don't you ever think like it's insane from your perspective? And maybe your dad thought this about Maradona, but I always think personally it's insane that we grew up during the Messi era.
Yes,
and getting to experience it all firsthand,
and the Ronaldo era.
Yeah,
just because I'm Argentine, I don't want to take anything away from that man's career. Like, if
you
we
appreciate
had to put a
greatness.
top 5 together, I gotta say it's got to be Pelé, Maradona, Messi, Ronaldo, and shit, I don't even know who else. Probably Cruyff would be up there. I think he was just so instrumental in bringing the game to a massive scale. But yeah, we are truly blessed to see these guys play, which is why I was not happy when Ronaldo had his whole situation in Man U. Like, so many people were like, "Oh, get him out," and all this stuff, and I'm like, this is like the decline of one of the greatest players, probably the second best player that has ever graced the field.
It was borderline disrespectful, right?
It was so disrespectful, and I don't think I was ever that disrespectful to him, especially in the early days of the podcast when he was still producing very well in top leagues. I don't ever want to disrespect that because the guy's just he's magical, and the fact that we got to watch both of them at the same time, oh my God.
Amazing,
my God,
man.
yeah, especially
go ahead.
In an era where we can like stream stuff. Like, I mean, we just have it at our fingertips now. I got off the 6 train and I immediately pulled up the Manchester City Arsenal game on my phone. And I was like, thank God I can watch this, because I would have missed like a whole 30, 35 minutes of the match if not. It's crazy.
Imagine you would have missed a lot of action. I think it was already 2-0 at that point.
Yeah.
You missed a lot of action. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. It's like it's insane what we have at our fingertips now versus what previous eras, including you mentioned your dad had to deal with. But I think we digressed a little bit. Going back to the point, I think you mentioned before going off the path just a little bit, not a ton. It's obviously football's in the background and it slowly starts to creep its way back in because of the personalities that emerge. When do you, I mean, we're still kind of missing that gap from when you got from that point to this, what I imagine now is especially considering Deadball TV.
Yeah.
He's a pretty diehard fan. Let's fill the gap in a little bit. Where did you start to really get back into it? Find yourself tuning in a little more frequently? And I'm sure at that point, Jack and Jake started to kind of really become more prominent as far as friends go, prominent figures in your circle.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a little hard to get an exact date for you. I remember when I started watching the Premier League was probably when I was fully back in the fold. I would always pay attention during World Cups. That was just what we did. When the World Cup came around, it was focused on that. And I think Copa America too, probably to a lesser extent. We were not very well off when I was younger, so it was harder to actually get the channels and like pay for cable and stuff like that. So we would always go over to my grandfather's house or my grandparents' house, and we would have an asado and we would watch footy. And so I think Argentina was probably pretty ever present in my life. But when I started diehard watching football again was probably around 2012.
Oh,
2012,
good time to come back.
It was a nice time, but I didn't have a team, so I didn't have like stakes in the game. But then, I found out that all of these Argentine players were on Manchester City, and I missed the Aguero moment. But coming back from that, I was like sky blue and white. I think I gotta get back into it. I just felt the calling, and it was like an itch. I needed it more than any American football game, than any baseball game that could go. I remember the Astros went to the playoffs one year, and I was like, I could give a shit back then, like it didn't hit me nearly as hard as what he did, especially that 2014 World Cup, dude. That was hook, line, and sinker. That Argentina team, I'll love them forever. I'll love it forever. I'll never forget that. Never.
It's the final. I don't think any well, you say Argentina fan, but I think if you were a Barcelona supporter, if you were a Messi supporter in any form or fashion, you just wanted to see him finally, achieve football, as they say now. Dude, it was like, who wasn't, unless you were a Germany fan, you were probably cheering on Argentina. And with how it all ended, it obviously is a little disheartening. You're still proud of the team. It is what it is. I'm just curious from your perspective. I ask a lot of Argentines this. Do you hold anything against Gonzalo Higuain from that day?
Dude, I've had this idea for a video cooking for a while about the rise and fall of Gonzalo Higuain. Pipita, he deserves so much more, but at the same time, I could totally understand the argument as to, he's made his bed, but I think that World Cup broke him. I think it broke him because, at Napoli, the guy was just a freak, scoring goals for free. Like, that was awesome, especially to see him on Napoli, Maradona's team, to see him doing that next to Cavani and who was it, Mandzukic too. Like, I really liked, was it Mandzukic? No, I'm thinking Hamsic.
Oh, yeah.
He had the fucking,
the crazy mohawk.
Crazy mohawk. I just really like those guys, and I like that team, and I had a lot of respect for Higuain. And honestly, early on in the World Cup, getting to that final, he got us there. I think. Aguero definitely wasn't the right option, as much as that pains me to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, Aguero just wasn't really producing. Higuain stepped up, but then we got to that final, dude. What was it? It was an offsides, an injury that could have sent him off the pitch, probably concussed him pretty severely. Taking a Manuel Neuer knee to the face, dude.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that.
And then miss, and then from there, you could tell just affected his play all the way around. And to miss the way he missed, it was just, I could only imagine being like in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, watching on a giant screen with 1 million people and just being like on the verge of tears because the moment's slipping away from you. And it's just, I don't know, man.
And it
I felt
was like that. It was like you had all this hope in your hands, and I just felt it like falling through the cracks. And there's like a moment where you're like, this is either going to penalties or we're gonna lose. And you watch like this team who, but frankly, had no business competing with that star-studded Germany team. Like, what an incredible team that
What a
Germany
great
team.
game in
It
general.
was so damn good. Like, it was absolute battles scenes in the Flynn household. It was absolute madness. And there were only 3 of us. It was my dad, my grandfather, and me watching the game upstairs in our game room. And dude, I mean, the Netherlands semifinal, that was like a drug.
Yeah,
Watching
man.
that game, the penalty shootout, and then Romero. Oh my God, saving that. Oh my God, he
Dude.
sent us through. And my grandfather was already an elderly guy. Like, he was pretty tired. He's very like put together. He always talks like this, and he's very, very gentlemanly, put together guy. He doesn't really show much emotion, but dude, when we made it through, I remember he like jumped up out of this like IKEA bouncy elastic chair. It was just like, "A la final, a la final," and he was jumping. I never seen my grandfather jump before,
Dude.
and I was just like so high on like the emotions, and I was like, "This is it." Like, people make they say like, oh, it's just a game all the time, but in that moment, like, I was Argentine for probably the first real moment in my life, and I felt this kinship with my father and grandfather that I just, not that I'd never felt it. I feel like they're very, loving guys, but oh my God, I had just never been that ecstatic with somebody before. And
It was
then
different.
it was like holding that hope for something almost twice as good and just feeling it like slip out of the fingers. And then, oh my God, when GOLZtv came on and he scored that goal from the corner. Oh my God.
He'll never
Oh,
have to buy another beer in Germany ever again.
no, dude, never. And I remember, like, ever since then, honestly, sometimes still, like, I'll watch the highlights from that game, and I'll just be like, oh my God, Neuer, that should have been a foul. Good, so we should have been marking him. Like, there was a picture that came out with his girlfriend where he's got like the little Speedo on and he's like hugging,
Wow.
kissing her, and they're like, oh, GOLZtv is vacationing well with his supermodel girlfriend. And I was like, fuck that guy. Damn it.
You only hate him for one reason. It's never personal.
One
You're
reason.
just sitting there. Yeah.
He's objectively a great guy. Like, he played for Dortmund. Like, I really liked him, but oh my God, the hatred that I held in my heart for so long. I'll never forgive him. I'll never forgive him for that.
Dude, this is crazy. I can only imagine the emotions you must have been going through at that time. And then, of course, right, the World Cup ends and you're only a month away from another season starting.
Yeah.
So at that point, were you only looking at teams like Man City at the time? Because I remember Inter Milan having a massive Argentina connection and for years now.
Yeah. Yeah. I really wanted, I think Italy, my heart will always truly belong to Napoli. I'm always very excited to see them doing well. But I really wanted a big team in the biggest league to be able to talk to everybody that knows football about. So I already had Barcelona, right? Obviously, because Messi and Mascherano, I was already locked in there. So La Liga was done, settled. I was like, okay, I'll watch any Barcelona game I can get my hands on.
Yep.
But I really wanted a Big Six team in the Premier League because I wanted, lots of stars. I wanted studs. And Man City was still kind of the underdog at the time. I know they had been bought out for a few years by then, but I knew that my dad's friend Jeremy, who he played soccer with, was a big Man City fan, and I saw all the Argentines there, and I knew that they were still kind of the underdogs. Everybody loved Manchester United, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll do Manchester United because Di Maria had just transferred there, so I was like, kind of still on the fence about it. I mean, Jack even went so far as to get me a Di Maria Manchester United shirt for a birthday. And I actually went as him for Halloween. Like, I wore the Di Maria shirt. I bought like some indoor cleats and like I bought like the.
Did you do the hair?
Shorts? No, I couldn't do the hair. My hair was. I've had this haircut for like the past fucking 10 years, man. There's no originality there. So I went and I liked it, but just watching them play, I wasn't sold on them. And then Di Maria had the falling out with Van Gaal, and I was like, fuck these guys. I'm going Man City all the way. So I really fell in love with them, and it was an easy transition. Light blue, white, ton of Argentines, and yeah. So I was sold on them. And you know what? In regards to Serie A, I know there's always been a strong connection between Serie A and Argentina and Italians and Argentines in general,
Yeah.
just because the culture is so incredibly similar. Um, I think I want Serie A to do well as a whole. Like, I would rather every single team there be good than Napoli just be dominant.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know?
I mean, it's more fun to watch that way, right?
Exactly.
I mean, how many points are they
Exactly.
ahead right now at the time of recording? Like 18, something stupid?
Something stupid. Something absolutely stupid. I can pull it up right now, but
Yeah, but
it's pretty unreal what they're doing over there.
yeah, it's insane. And so, like, I had it's funny that we're having this conversation today. I think the last or a few episodes ago here on Box to Box, the episode just went live today, actually. We had someone who was a massive Argentina national team fan, loves everything about the culture of Argentina,
Yeah.
and fell in love with Argentina in a big way because of one person, one player who kind of went against the grain in terms of how they looked, how they played, which was Javier Zanetti.
Ooh, okay.
And
Zanetti's one of those. It's like, who's your favorite player? They say Zanetti. You're like, ooh,
that's kind of a slick pick, bro. I like that.
Yeah.
And that's that's very much how this pick was. And I want to go into rehashing that entire episode. But at the end of the day, I think it's always great to hear why American-based fans support the teams that they do and who they're massively passionate about. So going into now, you mentioned before with you picking up Man City, committing wholly to them. You've been locked in Argentina since day one. So you got your club team, you got your national team for the most part. Let's fast forward a little bit into we could go as far as the 2018 World Cup, but let's say even Argentina winning the Copa America.
Yeah.
Does that slowly start to become like the foundation for which you start kind of building really solid? Because I think you have great football opinions, but just really solid like confidence in your football opinions, in your takes, so much so that I don't know, maybe you and Jack start talking about the possibility of putting some of this on the internet?
I think that 2018 was probably the foundation for that. Maybe not Copa America, but when I started realizing I kind of knew maybe a little bit more about the game than like the layman, or that I had a true passion for digging deeper,
Yeah.
was probably around 2018 when I knew that Argentina wasn't going to go far. Like, the pessimism in regards to Argentina, we've just been losing and losing and losing and losing, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, Argentina's a favorite. Argentina's got Messi. Argentina this, Argentina that." And I remember I picked in 2018. I was like, France is going to win it. I had it. I had it picked out. I'd have Croatia. I did not see that coming, but
Nobody
I had
did.
France. Nobody did. And kudos to them for that. But that's why we love the game, because of its unpredictability. But I had France. I was like, there's just too much on paper for this. I'm going to ride with Argentina as far as I can. But I really don't think they have the legs. And, Messi is incredible, but one player can't impact a team that is so disorganized. And I knew that football, especially in South America, the teams are impacted by so much more. I don't want to just say corruption as a blanket term, but so much disorganization that it's harder for them to compete with the Europeans. Not to mention the giant ocean that they have to fly across, the hemisphere that they have to cross. But I remember reading a bunch of stuff and like getting into it and hearing tales from the family back home about, oh, well, Messi wants to retire and all this stuff, and he's very upset. I'm like, yeah, well, I kind of understand that. Everybody was talking shit about him both in Argentina and around the world, like, oh, well, why would he just give up like that? And I was like, it kind of makes sense. Like, the guy was truly going through it, like 2 back-to-back Copa America losses and then a World Cup loss. Like, the team couldn't even get the AFA couldn't even, the Association of Football Argentino couldn't even get the correct flights set up for the team. So it's only logical to me. Like, this guy's putting his heart and soul in this, and they can't even book the plane. Like, he took like 2 weeks off from his beautiful life in Brazil. He's leaving his kids, his wife, all of his friends, his network, his career, his club that he truly loves and would die for, to come over here and do a service for Argentina because he is Argentine. He forsook Spain for Argentina, right? And then he flies over here to give his blood, sweat, and tears, and y'all can't even book the plane tickets. Like, I remember I was thinking, I was like, I'd be pretty damn pissed too.
He had
I'd be
one
pretty
job.
damn pissed too. So I think that in the middle of all that controversy, I was like, if I'm not a football expert, I definitely at least have a unique perspective, or I care enough about it to subvert like the general popular opinions of the zeitgeist to form my own. And that's where I kind of knew. And I think that's where I even started branching away from like my dad's opinions, because up until then he was like the guru, but you know, he was really hurt by Messi not wanting to be a part of it. But you know, as we started talking and reading about this more, he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no, you know, I can appreciate that." And I remember I was just that's when he started paying attention to me. And that's another indicator, you know, like I was
Yeah.
very much like the student, and he had his own opinions, did his things. But I remember I would say some things and he would just kind of like, he would think about it. And I was like, "Oh, I just said something intelligent," you know? I was like, "Okay, all right. I guess he appreciated that." So, yeah, I think that's kind of when I knew that I knew a little bit more than the lay person, you know?
Yeah, 100%, man. I think at the end of the day, too, the way that I phrased that question was, how did that kind of slowly start to scale into, Deadball? And I remember Jack telling me, I think maybe off screen one time that, I think he mentioned, maybe I got the order wrong. I think he mentioned he approached you first.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Jack has
before going to Jake.
always wanted to do this. He's always been a huge proponent of creating things, which I really appreciate. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's by virtue of me being an actor, but I'm very much always willing to create, but the genesis is a little harder for me to come up with. Like, a lot of the topics that we do, he's incredible at doing that. He's incredible at coming up with original ideas and topics and like things that interest him, he'll bring to the table. I think by virtue of me being an actor and not a writer, I'm used to people having the script ready for me and then getting into my creative space. Like, that is much more a track that my mind is willing to run on, you know, where I'm able to create more and to contribute. But he definitely did have that idea first, and I think that maybe he approached me first because we had differing opinions. We were able to argue about them, and we would just be like in tears, laughing or like crying, even though we're like fucking arguing about something that we're super passionate about. Honestly, the first time that I was like, wow, this could be really entertaining was after the World Cup final in 2018. We were talking about Otamendi and how Otamendi's World Cup had shaped up. And I was like, he had a pretty decent World Cup. Like, statistics wise, he had good numbers. He was decent. And Jack was like, he was fucking terrible. Because obviously, yes, the Mbappe goal that sealed the France win over Argentina then, it was Otamendi's fault. Yes, but the man had like clearances and like a physical presence that cannot be denied, you know, and you see that he's capable of that stuff at Man City and especially this World Cup, right? He can contribute these things. And I was just like, we were just like screaming over the island in his kitchen. And he was like, "You're a fucking bellend." And I was like, "You don't know what you're talking about." And I remember just like crying, laughing about this. And I was like, you know what? There might be some legs to this thing. And that's when I started seriously considering it. I think Jack had been pushing for it, but just he was still in Ohio doing college, and I was heavy into acting. I was booked and doing stuff, and I was like, this is going to be kind of difficult to work out. But that was the first time that I was like, you know, we could really do something here.
Dude, so that was pretty much the origins of what, Yankee football, right?
Yeah, Yankee football.
The original brand. Dude, I
Yeah,
love that. And that's how actually when I met Jack, I think when I probably met you guys for the first time, at least through a call, that's
yeah.
what the brand name still was. It was right
Mhm.
before it changed to Deadball. So where did Jake come into all of this?
Jake was, so me and Jack, we used to live in the same neighborhood. We played for the same YMCA team. The man's been my best friend ever since like elementary school. I moved away to the suburbs from downtown Houston, from the Heights area, maybe not downtown, the Heights area, to Atascocita, Kingwood area, like northeast suburbs of Houston, right?
Mhm.
Jack was one of the only guys that I stayed in contact with. Jake was his really close friends all throughout high school. They would, I don't know if Jack played much soccer in high school, but they were both athletes together. They would shoot shit about soccer together. I remember I met Jake very early on, and I used to think he hated me, actually. Jake's a very, it's funny, dude. At his wedding a few months back, everybody in their speeches was like, Jake's very stoic. He's a very stoic guy. And once you get to know him and once he starts like chatting, no, but like when you first initially meet him, like he's like tall, he's a pretty imposing guy. So I was like, this guy fucking hates me. He can't stand me. And you know what? Fuck that guy. But he always, shot the shit about soccer. He knew he played all the time. He played soccer and rugby, and he and Jack were really close. So he was the obvious choice there. I mean, it was Jack was like, we should do this thing. And I was like, cool. Yeah, we get Jake on there. We're gonna have a great combination. And we had some other friends that we talked about footy with, but nobody stuck with it as consistently as we did, I don't think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, based on kind of what you told me so far, I think adding someone to the mix, right, and just
Yeah.
thinking, okay, how can we make this work? What are we actually going to talk about? Who's going to offer what kinds of takes or personality to this show? Because at the end of the day, variety is, it's kind of everything we think about
Yeah.
content. A show like Deadball TV and everything you guys do, the different takes is what I think makes it so valuable. And at the end of the day, you will relate to probably somebody in your audience,
Yes.
right? But with that said, confidently, I will say you guys have a great dynamic. It seems like you've been friends for fucking ever, not just for as long as you're kind of relaying on the show today. I mean, I'm personally really curious. This is more of just a kind of a question about some of the conversations you guys have had. I've seen everything from you guys not being able to stop laughing hysterically on something for no good reason,
For
to
absolutely no reason.
yeah, for absolutely no reason, to like the smallest thing that Jack might have said just trigger somebody on the show, and it goes down a rabbit hole of that argument, right? I think of like the McAllister Penn Merchant argument.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So
that was
so with that said, I mean, like, is there an art? Like, is there a take now? Bring people deeper into the show and what anyone can expect from Deadball TV if they haven't tuned in already. Is there I don't know, a conversation that's very memorable, a moment that's very memorable that would really summarize the show from your perspective in a great way?
Oh, that is a tough one, dude. That is a tough one, but a really good one. I think some of our earlier conversations, like just when we were getting our feet set, we started having sort of the typical, conversations brought up, like, okay, Messi versus Ronaldo at this point in time, or who would you take? And obviously, back in the day, uh, Jake has always been a massive Manchester United fan, but before Ronaldo's second tenure at Manchester United, he was still very much a very hard, like ride or die Ronaldo fan. And I remember we had a huge, like, breakdown comparison of like Ronaldo, Messi, me versus Jake, and Jack was facilitating on either side. It was almost like a political debate. Jack was
That's
just like
great.
watching and like offering like little things. Well, okay, he stated this. What do you think about this? And me and Jake were just like going at each other. And there was a good mix of as we always hope to achieve, there's a good mix of absolute banter and just absolute shit talking and decent points offered. So that's just kind of what we hope to achieve. We always, especially in the genesis of Yankee football or dead ball, we wanted to offer like a show that wasn't quite so rigid. Like I just tried so hard to listen to so many different podcasts in order to like educate myself, and it's so hard to find one that actually offers good content in an entertaining way, because it is so easy to fall into just the stat block rabbit hole, and that is not, it's not appealing. is not
No.
appealing at the end of the day. So we wanted to do that, and we were like, we've got a really good thing here. Like I remember dying laughing over Jack's kitchen counter about Otamendi, and I was like, this is entertaining. This is entertaining. If somebody was listening to this, they'd really like it. I'm sure every friend group has had that moment. But yeah, I just remember the three of us just like sitting across the counter, and I was like, yeah, we could do this. And I kind of felt that way when we got to those Ronaldo, Messi debates. Yeah.
It is
Yeah,
the
man.
most football or soccer fan thing of you to say that a Messi Ronaldo debate was the most heated or
Yeah.
interesting topic of all time, because it is regardless of where you go. I could walk into a random bar today and probably just yell that Messi's the GOAT or whatever the case may be, and it would spark some sort of argument
Oh,
or
for sure.
100%, right? I mean, it has to.
Because everybody's got an opinion about it. You know, they're so global, and they've both had just so many incredible, memorable, internet breaking, world game changing moments that it's almost impossible to quantify. Like, I don't. I mean, now that he's won the World Cup, I feel like the debate is a lot more difficult. But before that, I didn't disrespect anybody for having, you know, a different opinion, you know, and I still don't really. Like, it makes me question a little bit personally. But I mean, I respect it. I respect it completely. I'm glad
Awesome.
Jake's changed his tune though.
I think he's had to, man. At some point, logic starts to take over, and you're like, all right, maybe they've got some points here and there. I don't know. We'll see. But either
Yeah.
way, man, I think if anybody who has tuned in, yeah, maybe you're watching the episode today because you already are well aware of who Connor is as a presenter and an opinion-based content creator on the broad spectrum of footy content that exists on the internet. Dude, I think that these backstories that you share with us today, how you've been brought up around this game, it's actually, dude, your journey is actually more, what is it, relatable. I think for a lot of stateside fans who grew up appreciating other sports or grew up having other hobbies that took over, aspects of their life for long periods of time before they were brought into this game. I reiterate it all the time on this show that that's kind of our journey. We're not like other countries who have embraced this game for
Yeah.
a century plus or decades on end. And I think we'll get there. But I think before we let you go today, I'm still really curious. I kind of ask some variation of this question when we jump on the show. Dude, you have this journey, like I mentioned before, so relatable. A lot of people probably gone through did slightly different versions of that. You've seen this game grow slowly in the background while you've appreciated Manchester City and Argentina and all those superstars that you just mentioned. The game's still slowly growing back here, right? US men's national team, MLS, the leagues underneath it, right? More grassroots style soccer, all that stuff slowly coming up in the background. And we're kind of at this, what some people are calling, I guess, maybe a tipping point. Maybe it's too early for that even. But
Yeah.
is, from your perspective, now as a content creator who lives and breathes this, is there anything, maybe even just one thing in particular, who knows, that would really allow America, North America as a whole, to make that jump, make this sport culturally relevant, make it not just a top 4 or 5 sport, but a top 2 sport in this country? Is there anything you think we're really missing to kind of make that jump?
Grassroots football. Um, and what I mean by that is that I see the interest out there, and the interest is out there. Um, I mean, if you don't believe the interest is out there, just look at, you know, the mega deals that like Apple is making with the MLS. They see the interest growing. That being said, the MLS will never be a truly good league until we have a Rooney, a Lampard, a Gerrard, something like that. Maybe not that quality, but a homegrown United States born player who America can rally behind. You know, somebody who truly lights up the MLS like Diego Maradona did for Argentina, right?
Yep.
Somebody who lives and breathes, I don't even know, like Nashville, the way that Maradona does Boca, or how he did. You know, we need that because I see the interest, but we are never truly going to support and get behind a league. It's just harder and less accessible for us as Americans if the best players in our league are always foreign imports. Not to say that that is bad for the sport. I think it's good. I think quality raising should always be the objective. But if we get more and more grassroots football and get opportunities for some of the kids that like I teach in my day to day as a teacher, Like, I see some of these kids, they love to talk about it, but I've seen, like, one of the kids that I teach his highlight tape, and he's good. He's good, but there's only one club that he can really go to in Brooklyn that's, like, worth his time. I think there should be 3. You should be able to, you know, there should be competition to draw these players away, and I don't know how you do that, but I think that the more grassroots football we have, the more accessible it is for these kids to get involved, and the more local football there is for us. That means I could go to a USF game on my day off that's accessible, and I'll see some, like, American talents, whatever that is, whatever that means, regardless of skin color, race, creed, religion, whatever. An American kid on the field, like, oh my God, that kid, he grew up in Nashville, or he's from Houston. Like, I love watching Jimmy Butler in the NBA.
Yeah.
That dude's from Tomball. That dude's from Tomball. He's a 45-minute drive from me. So that's my guy. He could go to the Golden State Warriors, my least favorite team. I would love that guy. I would love that guy. Honestly, like, if there's an American kid tearing it up for Dallas FC, our rivals, Houston and Dallas, we don't really like each other, but I would root for Dallas. I would. I'd be like, he's tearing it up over there. I want him to be that guy.
Hell yeah.
That's what I think we need, because that's what all people want to do. They want to identify. They want to identify with this sport. They want to be like, that's my hero. That's my idol. Because, I mean, that's all I wanted to do. There aren't many Argentines in Houston, Texas, especially not in Kingwood or Atascocita.
Definitely not.
So these are the guys that I had to relate to. And, I think Americans, once we have that kind of a personality, or that kind of a guy who is undeniable, I think Christian Pulisic, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, all great examples, but they're very much up for debate. It cannot be left up to interpretation. We need to have a guy who lives, breathes, and dies by the red, white, and blue.
Dude, imagine the day that happens, right? Imagine the day that we find our global superstar. And what's crazy is that before we're going to wrap up, I heard a quote not too long ago, and I kind of researched it to see how much truth there is to this fact. And it's not just an opinion. It really is. I mean, I guess some of it may be an opinion, but essentially the quote was, the U.S. is still the only team in North America, only country in North America, who has not yet had a world-class player come through its ranks. And I think that's really interesting, right? Canada just discovered theirs with Alphonso Davies. And he could have been American, right? Who knows? But at the end of the day, like, he is Canadian. So
yeah,
I think you might be onto something there, right? I think when we find our true world-class player who wants nothing more than to bleed for the red, white, and blue, I think we might have something that unites probably the two most fragmented audiences I've ever seen in my life, which is, millennials and Gen Z. In the US, that's the big divide.
Yeah.
Is millennials love soccer because it's been on forever and they resonate with all the people who are now pundits, versus Gen Z not caring because America frankly just isn't that great at it. And they haven't been given a reason yet to tune in. So
Yeah.
I think you might be on something there, man.
Hey, it's real. It's real. We just want to identify, and I think the second that we get, like, I don't know, I go back to, like, Clint Dempsey comes to mind. That guy went to war in 2014 for the red, white, and blue. And you want somebody with that attitude who can back it up. I think once you see something like that, some guy who goes to the White House after, like, just a crushing World Cup, it's got to break our hearts. That's how we're gonna indoctrinate people into this sport. We've got to have a truly American moment in the world of soccer.
We do. Now we do, brother. Oh, man. This was a great show. I'm glad we did this. I think we
Yeah,
learned a
me
lot
too.
about you, Connor. Your takes. I mean, dude, don't ever shy away from them. And I know you won't ever do that. But I think it delivers so much. You have such a unique value that you bring to Deadball TV. So I'm
Thanks,
really glad
man.
you took the time out of your very busy day, very busy schedule to be here. And look,
Likewise,
guys,
dude.
absolutely. And look, guys, for everybody who stuck around to the very end of the episode, we appreciate you. We're going to link Deadball TV down below. Be sure to go check out that show. They're growing like crazy. I would say like wildfire ever since you guys transitioned from Yankee football to Deadball. So guys, doing a lot of crazy things over there, and frankly, just having conversations that other pods, other shows really aren't having. So again, Connor, my man, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate it. For everybody who stuck around, thank you so much. Like the video down below, subscribe to the channel, and from everybody here at Box to Box, we'll see you guys next time. Take care.